Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Saga, where we talk about all those stories from beyond the Skywalker saga in that galaxy far, far away. I am your host, David Cunningham, along with Hannah Burr. How are you, Hannah?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Doing good. Doing good. We are diving back into and continuing on this episode the Star Wars comic series, written by Jason Aaron. That was one of the first series returning back when Marvel picked up the Star Wars collection of publishing again from Dark Horse. And this is volume 3 now. Rebel Jail. Yeah, Rebel Jail. So anyway, just to set this up before we get into our overall reviews, if you followed our other episodes where we talked about the Vader comic, because this runs parallel to the Vader comic, during that series, we did a comic crossover that was called Vader Down. And that involved 2 issues of this Star Wars comic series. So issues 13 and 14 were part of that Vader Down series. So we have already covered that part. So this issue obviously skips over those issues. And this volume consists of the Star Wars annual book, number 1, and then issues 16 through 19. Now, there is an issue 15 in here, but that one is one of the Kenobi Journal stories, which we will cover in a later episode as well. So, little update along the way as far as what's in here. So we are covering those stories in this volume, Rebel Jail. So, Hannah, overall review of these issues for this story.
First off, I have to say you have to read the annual first. It'll set it up perfectly. If you do not read the annual first, you'll be lost like me.
That's my fault because I didn't give you the annual.
To me right away, I read everything, and then it was like, that makes a lot of sense now.
Right. Yes.
So I'm just throwing that out there. Read that first. But in general, I think for me, while it told, once again, a solid story, and we're filling in more puzzle pieces between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, my main takeaways of I just love the relationships forming in between all these characters. I love seeing Han and Luke bond in bizarre but yet makes sense type of ways. And it really emphasizes why Han cares so much about Luke in Empire Strikes Back. I also absolutely love how Leia and Sana solo, but not really solo bond.
Yeah.
I'm still going to call her Sana Solo because that has such a ring to it, you know. Yeah. But anyway, the way that they bond is very similar to the way Han and Lando bond, in my opinion, or at least as I see them bonding within the canon of what we've seen so far on the screen. It's just the characters are all fleshed out. You see all these amazing interactions and relationships being formed. So the takeaway, while it's still full of action, it's still full of suspense and mystery, it's also filled to the brim, if not overflowing, with character development.
Yeah, I liked it. I think the biggest takeaway for me, which really made it really good, was, you know, you obviously can make any story about during this situation, because we know these characters survive, so it's hard to put them in, you know, dire situations and whatnot. That's always going to be the case when you're telling a backstory. But I think what really made this interesting was, it wasn't simply just another bad guy that was trying to kill them. there was a different meaning behind what was happening, which was very interesting. Basically, it was, without giving anything away, it was basically trying to help Leia understand what she has to do.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she may know what she has to do, there was a certain character, the antagonist in this episode, in this series, was basically trying to forcefully tell her what she needed to do. So I thought that was a very interesting take around this time period.
Yes.
When she's already witnessed her planet being destroyed and pretty much her entire race of people gone, that someone felt like she needed a reminding of what her purpose was, right? So I thought that was the big theme that I took away from this. I thought it was really good. Now, one thing I'll mention that isn't giving anything away that I thought it was really neat to see was that we actually see basically the Rebel Alliance's prison.
Yes.
It's called Sunspot Prison, and it literally is in front of a sun. And I love the way they described the protection of this thing, right? That you basically say you basically can't attack us because we have the sun behind us, and then we have a ton of ion cannons in the front. So it's like it's amazing. I love this part of it because it does make you think, like, okay, well, that's true. Where, if they do capture Imperials, where do they take them? Apparently, they take them to this place. So I thought that was a pretty cool aspect.
I thought it was a cool aspect, but at the same time, I thought, well, then why don't you hide important people there if it's such a protective space? Or why don't you have that as your headquarters? Like those were some of the questions that popped up. I don't get me wrong, I thought it was very cool. I thought it was incredibly clever. But at the same time, it was like, could you have put this to maybe better use or expanded use? Just curious.
True. I didn't think of it that way, but that's it. Actually, yeah. Why didn't you build onto that, make it bigger, and make it part of your base? Yeah, that's interesting.
Maybe instead of a planet destroyer that they create like a sun destroyer, so you create black holes to suck all those Death Stars or whatever in there. I mean, like, I don't know. To me, it made me go, really? If you thought of that, why not think of X, Y, and Z?
Uh-huh.
I mean, like, I also understand that their resources are limited because the Empire has them completely under their control. They threaten people to make sure they don't fund the rebellion. Like, that's seen multiple times throughout various different comics and books. Totally get that. But at the same time, if you had the resources to build this.
Yeah. True. No, I get what you're saying. That's actually very interesting. But I guess you could argue maybe that they didn't build it, and it was maybe a prison already, and the warden is just a rebel sympathizer, maybe. And
yeah, that's never established whether or not they built it or not. But that was my first instinct: was, wait, you built this?
Yes. Yeah, it's more likely that they did, just because if they didn't, a lot more people, especially Imperials, would probably know about it.
Oh yeah,
and maybe figure out that there are some of their people are there or whatever. So, yeah. So overall, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was a decent story. Interesting that I think this is, the second volume of this series was it was called The Showdown on Smuggler's Moon, so this is basically two stories in a row that, our heroes are not really facing the might of the Empire and Vader yet. Of course, again, Vader down happens kind of in between this, but not really an Imperial presence in this storyline. Are you shocked by that at all? Or are you?
To me, I'm pleasantly surprised, because to me that just enforces that, the Empire is not the only danger out there.
Right.
Without giving too much away, I think this just proved how much of a queen Leia really is. And I mean that in every sense of the definition of queen. I was very impressed that here's a teenager doing X, Y, and Z while X, Y, and Z is happening. It's just, I really hope you know what I'm alluding to. It was such an amazing scene. And it just, to me, I think it just strengthens their characters even more. In a way, it's training ground for what is yet to come.
Mm-hmm.
And it's much needed training ground for what is yet to come. Because in this, we see Leia's emotions slightly get out of hand. Understandably so, but they do. So I think that helps us arrive to a more reserved Leia in Empire Strikes Back. It just helps shows how she has grown between the two movies through these experiences that didn't necessarily have a direct connection to the Empire.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. I think you're right. I think that was Leia definitely stands out in this book for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
Even though you mentioned that the bond between Han and Luke, but they're pretty secondary in this storyline.
They're pretty much story B, Leia's story A.
That's exactly right. Yep. Yeah, a lot of attention with Leia and of course Afra and Afra's in the book, and like you said, Sana's in it as well. Again, a very welcoming story, I think, within this bridge that's happening between episodes 4 and episodes 5, 4 and 5. So, there's 3 years in there that we have to fill. So this is one of those steps into that. I don't know, anything that's impactful from this story that kind of changes anything for you as far as these characters go?
I think going back to what you said about how it's more of a lesson of what Leia has to learn. You would think that watching your own planet explode with everybody that you knew and loved would be enough to tell you what's at stake.
Right.
But I think a new point is made where it just doesn't stop there. This is what's really at stake. These are the type of choices you're going to have to make. This is the life you're going to have to live because of da 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 da. So it oddly makes you go, wow, I didn't realize the stakes could go any higher, or I didn't realize Leia could suffer anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And yet she does. And then with Afra joining, that was just a treat. That was just a straight up treat. But it also shows how indifferent she kind of is to everything. And that's all I'll say without spoiling it.
Yes.
But she's very indifferent. She's just like, whatever.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. I think for me, I don't think this entire volume, this story, is as impactful to the characters as I would, think other stories are. Thinking about it now, though, as we're talking about it, I will say honestly that I feel like, which I know I explained it to you, but you probably need to read it, but I think the annual issue had a lot more impact in in the overall storyline, because not only the connection that it does have with the other issues in this book, but I'll just go with, because in the I'll try not to give too much away, but in that annual book, it has the presence of Palpatine in it, and it really dives into just more of what we already knew, which is the propaganda that the Empire was putting out there to make the public feel a certain way against the rebellion, right? And I feel like those stories and those incidences that push that narrative, I think, are very impactful, because when we get to the movies like 4, 5, and 6, I mean, the rebels aren't just necessarily fighting the Empire; they're fighting everybody.
Yes,
that believes that they are just a group of terrorists.
I mean, you even see that in the books. Like, I think it was in Ahsoka, there was an attack, and they immediately blamed a rebel group. And Ahsoka was like, really? Because it was pretty obvious it was you guys. But then she ends up fighting not only them, but the village, essentially. So, I mean, that just brings the point home that propaganda back then, incredibly powerful.
Yeah. Yeah. So I really liked that part of it. And it really kind of, again, just reminded me how manipulative the Emperor has become, and how he built how he got to where he was. It was just a pure manipulation and pure propaganda, pure misinformation to make people believe that he was the only answer, whereas he was obviously the only villain.
We even see that in Bad Batch. All the clones that were following orders, he said that a bunch of Jedi came in and attacked him. And when you watch Revenge of the Sith, yeah, sure, from that point of view, okay, yeah, that's true, but that's not really what happened.
Exactly.
So he knows how to twist the truth. I
know. He was a master at it. It was unbelievable. So anyway, I think this was that part of it, I think, was really impactful and eye-opening for this book. So, all right. So rate it. What's out of 5? Where do you put this book?
I think I would put it 3.5 out of 3.5 out of 5. It's pretty good. Not my favorite, but there are a lot of moments where I'm not gonna lie, I chuckled.
Yeah. Yeah, you were usually pretty close to each other. I think I'll probably just give it a 3. Yeah, I mean, it was middle of the road. It was pretty good, but again, not as impactful to the characters as I would want. So I'll give it a 3. Solid book, but definitely there's better ones out there. All right, so that's our take on Volume 3 of Star Wars. We will continue that as again, we're only 19 issues in now. This thing has 70 issues, so we've got a lot more to do, Hannah.
You got it.
We will continue on, come back shortly, and we'll have Volume 4 for you, as well as some other Star Wars stories. We are still in the middle of doing the Aftermath series, so we will do that. And then we, of course, will drop in some other things here and there. If you look back at our previous episodes, we dove into. I think we dove into the Kanan comic because of the Bad Batches out there. So anyway, we got some great stuff for you. Go to youtube.com/Inside the Force. Subscribe there, please. Got a lot of people kind of getting there and getting some comments, and I really love the interaction there. So Of course, we got our Inside the Force show. We've got council sessions. We've got some interviews with people that have been doing Star Wars work. So go check that out. We really appreciate it. All right. So we will be back next time. Hannah, as always, thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much. Truly appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of the week, everybody. Take care. May the Force be with you.